First, we want to welcome Deanna to the We Have Overcome on tonight. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
All right. Well, before we get into it, I want to. Our topic tonight is surviving a domestic violence rape. Um, Now, I have to go back and correct some things that I said, far as her being raped in a marriage relationship. But she was in a relationship, but she was not married to her. It was one of her ex-boyfriends, guy friends that she was seeing. But in this relationship, you had children,
Yes, three.
three children,
With
and how long had you been with him?
we were together 5 years.
For 5 years. Yeah. So she has a survival story, and said before we get into her testimony, I still would like to share some statistics from the National Resource Center of Domestic Violence, VAW Net. Now this is on marital rape, so we want to just clarify that rape happens in a marriage too as well. So I just wanted to give you some statistics on it, because that was the direction that we were going in. It says approximately 10 to 14 of married women are raped by their husbands in the United States. Approximately one third of women report having unwanted sex with their partner. Historically, most rape statutes read that rape was forced sexual intercourse with a woman not your wife, thus granting husbands a license to rape. On July the 5th, 1993, marital rape became a crime in all 50 states under at least one section of the Sexual Offense Code. In 20 states, the District of Columbia, and on federal land, there are no exemptions from rape granted to husbands. However, in 30 states, there are still some exemptions. In most of these 30 states, a husband is exempt when he does not have to use force because his wife is most vulnerable. That means if she is in mental or physical, if she's mental or physical impaired or unconscious, asleep, and is unable to consent. Women are raped by their husbands, are likely to be raped many times, often 20 or more times. They experience not only vaginal rape, but also oral and anal rape. So I just wanted to shed a light on that too as well, because it is a thing. It is real, and it happens. And I just wanted to talk about that before you give your story, just to give, some statistics on, how many and how often these things happen. And we also have to think about, what's reported and what's not reported, because a lot of these
Yes.
things that happen, they go unreported. Is that one of your cases? Is that your case as well, Sister Deanna? Did you report him, or, how did you deal with that
I
situation?
actually have. I did experience that with my husband as well. My daughters were. I was actually pregnant and had to have C-sections with both of them, and he wouldn't allow me to heal. After C-section, you're supposed to wait 6 to 8 weeks, and he wouldn't allow me to, which he made me have sex with him, and it ended up messing me up on the inside. The reason why my daughter was the last one is because my uterus failed. It never went back up to the rightful place because of that, and there was so much damage done on the inside that I could no longer have any more children. So yes, that is absolutely correct, and that's something that I hadn't even considered. Because like you said, he was my husband, and they like to use the fact that you belong to me, I belong to you, and you can't say no. So, but because of that, it tore me up on the inside. I had bad adhesions. I had to go to the hospital and have adhesions burned off, and frozen off, and that was very, very painful. But because of that, I never healed. after I had my last child.
Wow. And
So,
that's not even talking about since we
no,
read those
no,
statistics that came up. Yes.
yes,
So I believe that that happens to a lot of women, where they feel obligated, even before their
yes,
6 weeks is up, because especially biblically, your body don't belong to
yes,
yourself, your body belongs to me, all these different, words that people use to
yes,
manipulate and control. And I believe that a lot of women have went through that, and just haven't voiced it or even realized that that's a form of rape. That is a form too, is
right.
doing things against your will. Yeah. So give us a little story on, your other relationship.
Um, well, I met my boy's father, my son's father. I have three, like I said, I have three sons by him. I met him in 1987. Um, no, it was 1988, and we were. When I first saw him, I knew. I mean, it was like the Lord began to speak to me concerning him, and I ignored him. He told me that he was bad news. Don't talk to him, and he let me know, what his intentions were. And for a little while, I did, and I allowed a young lady that worked with me at McDonald's to talk me into going on a double date with them. And it was from that point on that basically it didn't start out like that. It started out really nice. He would take me out on dates, and we would have fun, and we would just share each with each other, just getting to know each other. And it went from there. After he talked me out of moving in with talked me into moving in with him, because I was going through so much. I thought that that would be easier than what I was going through. So um, I did, and as soon as I did, he went from, it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It did not take long. I think I got pregnant by him within the first 4 months, and when I got pregnant by him, that's when things got really, really bad. I mean, now he basically thought that he owned me. It went from me breaking up with him because he was he was also sexually abusive. He was cheating on me, just doing all type of things, and I couldn't say no about, I couldn't say anything about what he was doing. And so one time the very first time he had ever put his hands on me, I had broken up with him, and I was actually living with a friend of mine, and I let him in the house. He said he wanted to come in and talk, and when I let him in, he told me that I couldn't break up with him, that I belonged to him, that I could never leave him. And I lived on the third floor, and he opened up the third floor window and hung me out the window with a knife to my throat and told me that if I didn't take him back, he would kill me.
Wow.
So that's when it started.
Mm.
I was 17, so it was, and it got worse and worse from that point on. No matter where, I tried to get away from him several times. I would go to friends' houses. He would threaten to burn the house down if they didn't put me out. I had babysitters, and he found out where I would take my children because I was in nursing school. I mean, it was either from my job, he was following me. I mean, it was just no matter where I went, no matter what I did, he was always there. And when I moved into a house that was across the street from the school, I had neighbors that, that I was really close to. I was kind of like the neighborhood mom where the children would come into the house, and, I would feed them and just spend time with them. And so their older siblings we came up with a code so that if any one of us would see him, we would do our little code, and he watched us so long that he knew the codes, he knew everything. So one time I was um, outside. I had just picked up my uncle from work, and I would ask my uncle to come spend the night, at my house, and I wanted him to, to be there with me. This is right after my granddad had come, and stayed there a week, and the whole time that my granddad was there, he didn't show up. And as a matter of fact, he talked my brother into telling him where I stayed. My brother has cerebral palsy, and he was afraid of him. So he beat him up and threw him in the woods, him and some other people.
Beat your brother
And
up?
yes.
Wow.
Yes, that's how he found out where I stayed. Yeah, so it wasn't just me. It was my oldest son who I did not have by him. He beat him up. He abused him. I think it was a lot more than my son still has never talked about it, but he's still having some type of issues concerning it. And when he found out where I stayed, my oldest son, I had already had by this time I had already left him because I decided to give my life back over to the Lord, and this was after I had my second son by him, and my second son was 10 months old, and he had began to turn people against me, telling people that I took him back and they would drop him off at my house and he was sneaking in through the window. He would wait until they left, and I was telling people, no, I haven't taken him back. He's getting in through the kitchen window. Please come and fix the window. But nobody believed me. I mean, he literally had everybody against me, and it was like I was just dealing with this by myself. I mean, family, friends, everybody believed him. So it was my word against his, which is one of the worst things, and one of the things that they do. They try to get you away from those that care for you, and he was very, very cunning with his words. So he even had the elders at my church talking to him, and one of the deacons. And everybody just was trying to help him because he kept saying that he wanted to do right by me, and he wanted to marry me, and so everybody was counseling him, and it was a mess. And nobody believed me. So it was kind of hard because it wasn't just my family, my friends at the church too. So
you felt like you didn't have anybody. You felt like you didn't have anybody.
I didn't. No.
Wow.
No, I didn't.
Wow.
So it was just.
So that at that point you escaped him, but you end up going back.
No, I never went back to him. When he found out when he found out where I stayed, it was my brother told him, and I never took him back. And so what he'd do is come and tell me, I need you to take me down to my mom's house, who lived like 30 miles away, and I'll never leave. I'll never come back and bother you again. Just take me. So and this was the night that the very first night that he was in the house. He came, he had snuck in, and it was late. I was coming home from school. I went to school at night, worked during the daytime and school at night. And he was hiding under my son's bed. So they knew he was in the house, but I didn't know. And he told them that if they said anything, to warn me, that he would kill them. So we all went to sleep, not knowing that, I didn't know he was in the house, but they knew. And so I was asleep, and I was awakened with a knife to my throat. And he told me that if he asked me if he could stay the night, and I was like, yeah. I mean, what am I going to do? Say no, And so then the next day was when he asked me to take him to his mom's house, and so I thought that would be a way for me to get rid of him. So yes, I took him, and it was that particular day that my family saw him in the car with me. So of course now they believe him, and there was nothing else that I could say. So it was really bad. And so that went on from January until April 27th, which was the day that he stabbed me. But between the time of that, I had friends, like I said, that would come over to the house, and check on me and make sure, and it was male. So one time he was standing behind the door, and he had a screwdriver in my back, and told me to answer the door. And my friend, was like, Deanna, I'm just coming around checking on you. As this guy that I went to school with. And he knew about, my situation, and he I think he knew that he was behind the door because, it was like, I was telling him, don't say anything off the wall. And when he left, that's when he stabbed me in my stomach and raped me.
That was the
That was
first
the very
time
first.
he stabbed you in your
That was
stomach?
the second time. That was the second time. The very first time was this one. I have one right here. I don't know if you can see it, but this was the very first time.
So when you got to the multiple stabbing, he had cut you and stabbed you before you even got to that time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Two times.
See,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
and then you showed people the scars and the wounds and people still didn't believe you?
That's correct. Because he said that they were self-inflicted.
Wow. Okay, go ahead and get up to the point where, you said, so the first time, the second time, he raped you.
Yes.
Were your kids in the house? Were your children in the house?
My children were yes, they were.
How old were your children at that time?
My oldest son was 5. Then I had a 2-year-old. And then 10 months. So they were 10 months, 2 and 5.
Okay.
Jesus. And with even the day that I got stabbed, he was there. But leading up to that, I didn't think anything about it. It was like this was just something I was going through, and I kept calling the police, and they would pick him up and talk to him and tell him, dude, you see she doesn't want you. Why don't you leave her alone? And instead of them taking him to jail, they would drop him off down the street, and he would be right back to my house. Because to them, they were agitating him by telling him, making him feel embarrassed by me not wanting him. So the day before he stabbed me, I had just dropped my uncle off, and what I did was I would always put my purse in the trunk of the car because I didn't know if I would be somewhere and I would have to take off running. So I never wanted to have my purse, which had all my information in it. So I always put it in the trunk because, like I said, he would show up wherever I was, and I didn't want to have my purse out. If I was in nursing school, which was way out in Colonel Glenn, he would show up. I mean, no matter where. When I worked at a fast food restaurant, he was there, so it didn't matter wherever I was, and I always kept my purse in the trunk. Well, after I picked my uncle up, I told him that I need to go outside to get my purse out of the trunk. Well, the signs that I had given my neighbors to let me know whether or not that he was around, he did that. So I walked, like towards the corner, and my neighbors live around the corner, but I walked towards the corner and I saw him, took off running, he grabbed me. He grabbed me and drove me around into the alley, beat me in my face, and beat me up, and tried to rape me that night as well. I ended up getting away, and when I got away, because my uncle came outside looking for me. He was calling my name, which scared him away. And it was at that point, now I can go ahead because I have proof. Because the police, every time they came over, he would throw, big bricks through my window. And every time he would come over, the police would always tell me that I didn't have proof because there was no scar. There was no scar. There was nothing on me that they could see or solidify what I was telling them, because what they thought is that I just wanted him out of my house because it was domestic violence, and they wouldn't do anything when it came to domestic violence in the South. That's just how it was, especially in Arkansas. There were so many women that were being killed during the same exact time that I was going through. So the next day, I was able to, now I can go ahead and I have proof. So I went to the police station and, filed a report, and now it's a kidnapping charge. So now they have APB out on him for kidnapping, and he called me that morning and told me that he heard that I had that they had an APB out on him because he has some police officer friends, and that since I put the police on him, he's going to go ahead and do something deserving of going to jail. And it was that night, the same neighbors asked me to go and pick his girlfriend up from work. And So we were getting ready to go, and I heard he had slashed my tires. And so I went to the door, and the neighbors saw him and took off running. So it was like they left me there by myself. So I slammed the door, locked it, and called the police. Well, after this is like the 30th, 40th time that I've called the police. Now, it took them so long to get there. So he broke in, he kicked the door in. My door was very, very thick. He kicked the door in, knocked all the locks off the door. Picked me up. And when he picked me up, but before this, let me back up. Before this happened, I was driving because by now I'm getting back closer to the Lord, and I prayed and I said, Lord, whatever I've done to deserve this, let me take it. Please don't let him harm my children, because he had already been telling me that he was going to kill all of us. And then after that, and then his mom even knew. I mean, everyone knew. His mom, his aunts, his cousins, everyone knew. Everyone knew that what he was planning on doing, but no one told me. But of course, just knowing that something was getting ready to happen, I felt it. So that night, it was around 10:20. And he came and he kicked the door in, picked me up by my neck, and he flung me across the room. And when he flung me across the room, my head landed on the floor and my body landed on the couch. And he put his knee in my stomach, and he took out a knife. And when he took out a knife, he stabbed me the first time in my chest, right close to my heart. I have several wounds up here. And when he stabbed me, and when I caught my breath, I said, Jesus. And when I said Jesus, I literally laying on the couch. I saw something, and I know, it came and it laid on top of me. So I saw him stabbing me, but I didn't feel it. Jesus. And he commenced to stabbing me. I remember grabbing the knife. These two fingers were dangling, and this one was dangling. So these three fingers I would have lost. He cut me across here, and then he cut this one. He split this one down the middle. And then this one here, I don't know if you can see it, but this one here, I covered my face up. Yeah. And then this one. So he really he wanted to kill me. He told me that if he couldn't have me, nobody else could. So he finished up and continued on, and then I raised up, and when I raised up, he just started stabbing me in my back. He got me everywhere but my face and my legs. So he stabbed me twice in the left lung, once in the right lung, left kidney, intestines, arms, hands, fingers, just here, across here, just everywhere. I mean, it was just, I looked like a zombie by the time he got finished.
So even at this time, let me say this. I don't mean to cut you off, but even at this time, you had called the police. They still hadn't came.
No, they had not come yet. No, they had not come yet. And so when he got off me, I passed out. And when he got off me, when I came back to, I was looking at him, and he was going towards the door to kill my sons. And when he ran towards the door, it was like he ran into something, and it bounced off. And when he bounced off, it startled him, and he ran out the door. So and of course we know it was the Holy Spirit stopping him from hurting my children. Yes. I just believe that, it's the walk that I had with God had really began to manifest even more in my life. And so because of that, of course, when you have an experience with God, and then you kind of go backwards, you leave the room for the enemy. And he definitely didn't want that. So by now the police is there. As soon as he was able to take off running, and I don't even think they saw him. or either he was hiding, because every time the police would come, he would hide, or someone would come, he would be hiding, because like I said, I lived across the street from the school, and there were big logs and everything, and he would hide on the ground. He was a snake, sneaky. And so when they got there, they was like, "Ma'am, we're so sorry. Had we known this was going to happen, we would have helped you." And I told them, I said, "You all already knew. This is 4 months. You all knew." And "Well, ma'am, we need to get you up. You're going to die. You're bleeding too much." And I asked them to kind of go out and sit on the porch and wait on the paramedics to get there. Because at that time it was my time with God. I had to repent for disobeying Him, because I knew better. I had to repent for all the years that I lived apart from God, knowing that He was my everything. And it was at that point that I began to thank Him, because I knew I wasn't going to die. I thanked Him for not allowing my children to be hurt. I knew that He answered prayers. And I just, that back now the paramedics are there, and they're working on me, trying to, my stepdad, he came, and he was, oh man, he was messed up. So he went after him, and by now my mom had already gotten word from my next door neighbor, they were an elderly couple, so they knew my mom, so they called her and let her know what was going on. And so she was like, "Lord, what do I do? What do I do?" And He told her He had enough prayers and laid up in heaven in the bank account, so all she had to do was go and just listen to Him and do whatever He told her to do.
Yes.
So she was actually at the hospital by the time I got there. And so we were in the paramedics, and they had loaded me up and asked me which hospital they wanted me to take. They wanted me to take, for them to take me to, and I was like, the closest one, which was not far from my house. But although I knew that I wasn't going to die, I knew that there was something still missing. And so I asked the Lord, what it was, and I heard Him say, "Give me all of you." So it was at that point that I raised my hands up in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and they still working on me. So I'm fighting with them, and I'm telling them, "Y'all don't understand what I'm trying to do. Just let me do this." And I lifted up my hands and I said, "Lord, here I am. I give you all of me."
And
it was at that point
hanging
that
off.
I felt peace.
And you had fingers hanging off.
They had bandaged up. Blood was everywhere. Yes.
Oh, Jesus.
But I felt like I had to do that. Yeah. So by the time I got to the hospital, I'm smiling now because I can see my mother. She's in there. Oh man, she was, yes. So just even talking about someone who's experienced something like that, with something traumatic with your child, to be able to, that's something as well for her to talk about. But she the very first paperwork that they gave her was the sign of my organs, because they knew that I wasn't going to live. I was too messed up. I had lost so much blood. Mm-hmm. Yes, so I was too far gone. There was 2 paramedics. I remember my ambulance and another one. And the young lady that was right before me was stabbed twice, and she was DOA. I remember all of that. So of course, someone being stabbed 2 times.
Tell them how many times you were stabbed. She was stabbed twice, but you were
22 times.
22 times. But God, come on.
But God, yes. So, and that wasn't counting the first 2 before that. Right. So basically, he stabbed me in all 24. But we were in the, and they were arguing with my mother, and my mother told me that you can't touch her while she's with that attitude. "I'm not going to let you touch her. I'm not signing any paperwork. You're going to." And so now I'm listening to her argue with these physicians, and they're like, "Ma'am, you don't understand." She said, "No, you don't understand the God that I serve." He said she's going to live. and not die and declare the works of the Lord. So there's nothing that you can do right now until you get your attitude right. So and I'm like, Lord, what is going on? And so at that time, he was healing me on the inside. I didn't know what was going on, but the Lord knew. And so they would not be able to get any type of credit for anything.
Wow.
So when they finally succumbed to, what she was saying, and she said, okay, now that your attitude is right, now that you're saying that you believe what I'm saying, I'll go ahead and sign the papers. And she signed the papers, and they began to work on me. Well, when they opened me up, of course, I have a scar from right under my breast all the way down, because they were doing exploratory surgery. And when they went in, there was nothing but a little valve. Everything was closed up.
Wow.
My lungs, of course, they had to inflate them, but there was no. The only holes at this time was where they put made the hole so that they can inflate my lungs back up, but everything else was healed. My intestines, my
they hadn't
kidneys, everything was closed up. They hadn't done anything.
Wow.
They hadn't done
anything. But you knew that the stab wounds punctured your lungs, they damaged your kidneys.
Yes.
All these things happened. But when they went in to look, God had already healed you. God had already healed you. And wow. He had begun the process. So the actual doctor that started, he couldn't believe it, because medical books don't say this. This is not real. And he yes. And so he gave my case to someone else. So now I still haven't found that I'm pregnant. So we were, I was in the hospital. They kept asking me to have a blood transfusion because I had lost so much blood that I lost 26 pounds within one night. Wow. This happened on a Monday. So, but every day, I was getting better and better. But the last thing that they wanted me to do was have a blood transfusion, and I told them I wasn't taking it. The Lord told me not to. So, he started the work. He was going to finish it, and so I refused it. So, but anyway, of course, they're doing the X-rays, they're doing CAT scans, they're giving me all the medication. But every time they gave me medication, I would throw up. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Lord, why do I keep throwing up every time he said stop taking it? He never told me that I was pregnant. He just said, don't take any more medicine. So I stopped taking it, not knowing why, whatever. And I got out of the hospital. They were like, there's nothing else that we can do. You refuse and take a blood transfusion. So we're just going to release. I was released on that Saturday. So I was only in the hospital for 6 days. After being stabbed 22 times, you were only in the hospital for 6 days. 6 days. Yes, ma'am. Sunday morning, we was in church. Wow. We tore that church up. Look at God. Wow. So I know y'all tore that church up. I know that church was the same after that church. I know you did. So wow. That happened April 27th. As a matter of fact, I got in the hospital. My oldest son was turning 6, May 6th. I went to the school and took him some cake and sat with him for a little while. Then of course I was tired and I needed to go home. Well, May went past, June went past. Now here's July. One of my friends had asked me to take her to the clinic to see if she was pregnant. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So she was in the back, and I'm in the waiting room reading the magazine. And the Lord said, go take a pregnancy test. Mm-hmm. Now I'm in the waiting room with everybody. I told myself I'm not taking no pregnancy test. You know what happened to me? There's no way if they opened me up from the rooter to the tutor, they would have seen that baby. Mm-hmm. So I'm reading. I guess I was talking to him. Everybody looking at scooting away like it's crazy. That's how I talk to him. Right. So I'm flipping through the paper, the magazine, and he said, "Go take
pregnancy test. I said, do you know what could be wrong with this baby? There's no way that baby survived me being stabbed 22 times. I'm talking like this. And so they entered away, and the receptionist looking at me. And then he called my name. He said, Deanna, go take the pregnancy test. I said, okay. And I slammed the magazine down, and I went to the receptionist, and I asked her that, told her that I signed in and told her that I need to take the pregnancy test. Well, he got me there for me. She wasn't pregnant, although she thought she was. I didn't know that I was, but it was me that was pregnant. That's how I found it out.
Wow.
So, my very first appointment, the doctors were like, there's going to be something wrong with the baby. You know how much drugs you had, the blood work the blood that you lost, the X-rays that you took, they had all types of things. So the very first thing they wanted to do was abort my baby. I told them no. So I never went back to the clinic after that. I went to one of the midwives that went to church with us, and I told her that I was pregnant, and got with my pastor, and she was a midwife from the military. She was a major in the military, but she was a doctor, and we went through it together, and she ended up delivering my baby at home. So, because I refused to allow anyone to that didn't have faith to touch me. I just didn't, God had already began to work, so I refused it. And during that time, as a matter of fact, when you were, the statistics that you just named that happened January 5th of 1993, they also had passed a law for that same month, because I went to court January 22nd of 1990. And because they had him in jail, and they didn't want me to do any type of hearings because of I was high risk pregnancy. And it was at that same month that not only did they pass that one, they passed the terrorist threatening law. They passed the domestic violence law as well, which basically said that even although you all were living together at one point, if she calls, then they're supposed to do something. They still haven't done anything with that law to me, because there's been so many women who have died at the hand of someone that they lived with.
But before then, so you were in the time where they hadn't passed the laws. They had just started working on the laws. Wow.
Yes.
Because I heard in some states that they don't come to the aid of those that have emotional domestic violence. They don't consider that. In some states, they don't consider that as domestic violence.
That's right. I actually went to school, and one of my classes is criminal justice. And it was at that time that I was actually studying. This was after, of course, the stabbing, but they began to realize that there's financial abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse. I mean, there's all the abuse that women don't know. Exactly. That men or women don't know about. Right. There are a lot of abuses and I didn't know. So that's the reason why I didn't know what there was. But the very first thing that they try to do is tear you down mentally first.
That's it.
Before physical. So once they tear you down mentally, you don't feel like you're worth being saved. Exactly. Or, and that's how I felt.
Right. Or it's only them. You don't have anybody but them. They isolate.
Yes, and that's he's telling me that all the time.
Yes. We talked about earlier today about emotional blackmail and emotional even rape. Yes. And if you're vulnerable, the enemy, whoever it is, they'll try to take advantage. And I'll say the enemy, because we know that deep down, even though he had a body, but it still was the devil. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, it was a spirit that you were battling with. It was a spirit, because the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and he uses vessels to do that. He don't just come down from heaven and come down or come up or wherever he at. No, he uses a person. you know.
That's exactly right.
So,
And that spirit actually follows you because
and it does.
that he wasn't the only one. It was like every relationship that I was in. I mean, like I said, my ex-husband after him, I didn't. That happened in '92. By '97, I was 96. I was involved, with my ex-husband, and we were together for 3 years before I even said I do. And as soon as I said I do, he was attracted to me. There was no reason. I was not looking for anyone. I was just about my business, taking care of my 4 boys. At the time, I had 4 boys, and just going on, doing that. This time, after I got well. I actually started teaching. The Lord told me to go into the classroom. He told me to go to the church, because our church at that time, that the year prior, had started a Christian school.
Mm-hmm.
And so the school that I was attending would not put me on academic probation because I had missed my finals, because it was nursing school, and so you had to take your finals course before you start your clinicals, and they wouldn't allow me to take them. Although I took in the newspaper clipping, they saw everything that was going on. They knew, because I had all that with me, and they refused. So I was like, well, what's going on? He said, now you can do what I want you to do. Mm. And he told me to go into and start teaching, which is what he wanted me to do from ever since I was 7 years old. I knew that I was going to be a teacher. But of course, by the time, I finished school and everything, I started did what I wanted to do. And that's not what God wanted me to do. He always wanted me to teach. He placed that in my heart when I was a little girl. Okay. So I went to the principal of the school and told him that I wanted to teach. He asked me why, what makes me think that he should allow me to teach. I said, because God said so. Mm. And he put me in the classroom as an aide for 4-year-olds. And within 2 weeks, they saw the anointing on my life, and they switched me and the teacher up, and I became the head teacher, and I've been teaching ever since.
Now that is a blessing. That is a blessing.
Oh yeah, touching the lives of children. Yes. That's what he told me he wanted me to do, to be there, because I've taught children from 4 years old all the way up to 17 years old, graduated. Mm-hmm. And I sound the alarms. Many, many girls, I was able to see so much within my first 3 years of school, of teaching. I sounded the alarm of many, many pedophiles that were children whose their parents, their fathers, their mother's boyfriends, the abuse, and I was singing, because after you've experienced that, you can pick that up. That's the spirit, like you said, exactly. And I pick it up just like that. Yes. And that's what was going on. So, and it's been like that ever since. So when I see abuse, if I see any type of dealing with a student that was talking about committing suicide, it was just the Lord. I could see it, and it was like it was just different things that a child, because it's the spirit and it's operating, and when you see it, you know exactly what's going on. So I was able to recognize it and sound the alarm, and that's the reason why it's for God's heritage, it's for His glory, and to train His heritage.
Yes, especially with us knowing now, what we didn't know then is that the enemy comes after you as a child. Most people's issues begin in their childhood, and then they transition over to their adulthood. Yes. So there's a process, where God will reveal it, where we just need to go through healing. So how long have you been going through your healing process after that situation? And then also, you said they arrested him. Okay, so.
Yes. He went to jail. He turned himself in. His mom made him turn himself in. They were looking for him. They had me under an alias name because they hadn't found him yet. So and he was looking for me. He was calling my church members. He was calling several people because he told them that after he found out that I wasn't dead, that he was going to come and finish the job. So he was looking for him. And that went on for about 2 or 3 days before he turned himself in. And they had him locked up until I was well enough to go to court. So we went to court. That happened in April of '92. We went to court in January of '93. They gave
And the laws were
him
passed then.
25 for attempted murder, 12 for kidnapping, 12 for rape, 6 for terrorist threatening. They hadn't yet done domestic violence yet, but the terroristic threatening they said would take care of that, and then they ended up running it concurrent. So all he did was serve. He got out in 2004 of October.
How
So
long
from
did he serve?
93 to
From 93 to 2004?
2004, 11 years.
Wow.
He served, and he would get out on weekend furloughs. He would send messages to me because when I started back to school for teaching, some of the people that knew about all this, because it was all over the news, and people that knew him and that went to school with me, he was sending me messages through them. He walked up on me one time. I was in Walmart, bent over tying my son's shoe. And he just stood there, and it was like trying to intimidate me. But he would write me letters telling me that he forgive me for calling the police on him. He knows that the only reason why I did it is because of my mother, and it was my fault. If had I not left him or let him, if I'd let him come back, then he wouldn't have done it. It was just all that type of crazy. But the one thing we have to realize is that those demons come in through something drastic anyway. It's something that comes in that from some type of abuse. And so that spirit followed me ever since I was a little girl. And that's just where, that's where it was. So, I mean, there was a lot, so much that happened to me that I'm going to write a book. I've already started writing my book.
Right.
But yeah, and it comes through a traumatic experience. And when that traumatic experience happens, then it opens the door, and people don't realize that, but it opens the door for other things to come, especially if it's not dealt with and it's hidden. So a lot of times we and they say Black people don't want to be counseled, or they want to keep things hidden. Excuse me, and all that. So they just go through life hiding things and excuse me,
suppressing
and not
things.
dealing with things. Yes,
Yes,
and that's what I did. I pressed a lot of things down.
So your suppression started as a young child when you was going through your traumatic situation. Started as when you were young, never dealt with.
I was 6 years old.
Right, and then those same spirits began to try to attach themselves to you.
Yes, I was at 6 years old. I was raped by a family friend.
See, Jesus.
And I never told anybody.
At 6 years old.
Yes, and my family still don't know today.
Then, wow. So then people that's when the spirits continue to try to rape you and take advantage of you. Actually tried to take you out as a little girl. So how did you deal with that? 6 years old. I'm sorry. You said you never told anybody? Is this your first time releasing it right now?
Not that person. Yeah, yes, the 6 year old, and I was 6 years. This is the first time I've ever said anything.
Wow.
But the molestation started at the age of 7 all the way up to 14.
Wow. So did God take you back to that time? Because I know that even confessing that, I'm telling you that there's a form of deliverance has happened right now. Just from you confessing that and releasing that. And I want to say this to those that are listening, because how powerful confession is. Even the Bible says, and confession is crucial to your deliverance. And I know that she's in this setting. She didn't have to share that in this setting. That could have been something private, but I just thank God that, he allowed you to be free, to be able to talk about these things, because I believe that because you come forth and all those that share their testimony, that it's going to help somebody else. Just like I said, the Bible says, confess your faults one to another that you may be healed. And what that does is once you expose that, whatever that traumatic thing or whatever it is that you've been hiding and keeping secrets, it relinquished the power of the enemy. It exposed the enemy, first of all. So once you expose him, he can't use that against you, and you
Right.
expose
Right.
that spirit too as well. And you can begin your healing process. Now, I'm not saying healing is going to happen immediately. No, it's a process. It is a process.
It
But
is.
even you got to a level of healing that you were able to release that today. So
Yes.
I thank God even for that, that you were able to release that. Go ahead. You was going to say something? Go ahead.
I was just sharing how it does takes a while, because a lot of times you don't want to say anything because for fear of hurting someone. When you are in that quiet time and you're talking to God about it, and you have to release things, and then because it gets to the point to where you don't feel, that there's a depressing spirit that comes with that, because the first thing you think about is that's the only thing that they want. Nobody really wants me. All they want is sex. They don't really know the need. They don't know who I am. And that spirit follows you,
right.
that because number one is you speaking it out of your mouth, and we have to watch our confessions because that's a confession, and it's coming out of our mouth. We're saying things that's not true, but if you continue to say it, you begin to believe it. So for a long time, it's just I got to the point to where it didn't matter. So and I am I'm still a person that I get off to myself a lot, because that to me is me protecting me, because for a long time no one protected me, and that's just how that's so. Even with that, even with me confessing that now, I'm alone a lot, and that's my comfort zone. Being alone, so I don't have to go out. I don't have to go to people's houses. I don't have to, do anything. I'd rather be at home by myself.
So what would you? Okay, so we know that there's different types of abuse, and I think that that people should really know and understand the signs. Because even at 17, when he first stabbed you, he first showed that he was the aggression that he had in him, and the anger, and that he was coming against you, and you just felt like you didn't have no way out. Some people believe that that's what they're just supposed to take it. Some women believe that that's just the way of life. Even though some guys say they love you, and then they're still putting their hands on you. What advice would you give? Because we awareness, domestic violence awareness is not just 1 month. I know in October they say that that's domestic violence awareness, but we should always, that should always be, because it's so many women and men that's in a domestic violent relationships, and they're still in it with not an idea of how to get out of it. And some people don't even know they're in one because they're so accustomed to pain. They're accustomed to being hurt,
And that's what I told you. I walked around waiting on the next bad thing to happen. And it did. Because that's what I expected. So my expectation was to be hurt, to be somebody to abuse me, somebody to do, and it happened. It literally happened until I had to get out of that mindset. But what I would tell people is, and this is with anyone, if someone is interested in you, never ever do anything apart from someone else that that loves you. Make sure that there is someone that always knows what's going on with you. As far as relationship goes, let someone that vet them. I take it through my dad. You have to talk to my dad. If you're interested in me, you need to talk to my dad. Because a lot of times we don't see men, and it's like men don't see women like another woman. So, I would. That's one of the things that I did. Even with my sons, I had to vet them, and I would let them know, no, she's not the one. So always make sure that someone is there to cover you. You always have to be covered. And it has to be someone who cares for you and the other person, not because you don't want someone that's one-sided. You want someone that's spiritual enough and that hears from God. I thank God for my mom's remarried, and I call him Dad, because I know that he loves me. And I know that his love for the Lord will allow him, and the wisdom that he obtains through prayer, he obtains through the Word of God. I know that I can trust him, and that took a lot as well, because I put my trust in pastors and different things, and it was like, man, that spirit follows you even from people in the church, from men pastors in the church. I had to, but I thank God for my dad. I thank God for the man that God placed in my life, who adopted me as his daughter even before my mother came into the picture. So at that time, and it was during that time that the healing process was going on, because I was at that particular time seeing a counselor who was actually a Christian. He was a pastor. And that's when that's when the healing began. But I had to, it was easier for me to forgive other people than it was for me to forgive myself. It was easier for me to release other people than for me to release myself, because the first thing you say, I should have known, or I knew better, or, and that's one thing as well. That's the enemy, God doesn't condemn you of anything. He convicts you before it even happens. And then it's the devil that condemns you. That's why the scripture says there's therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Yes. So we have to understand that when things like that come up in our spirits or in our hearts or minds or whatever, it's not God. So, and there's always in the multitude of counsel, there's wisdom. So get that wisdom from people that that loves you and that care for your well-being. So I tell people all the time, don't get off over to yourself, because you don't know everything, and you think you do. You think you are someone who can pick up. Even now, although I say, now I can recognize it. Even with me recognizing, I'm still saying, okay, you know what? This is what needs to happen. Yeah. And that's what I'm living by. I have to. You know what I'm saying? So if it's anybody that I think that's interested in me that way, they have to go through my dad.
Good. That's good practices. And
yes.
Yeah. So I know that, well, I mean, that's a whole nother subject we can get into when we, about the ministry and pastors.
Yes.
And, us trusting in those that because they say, because they have a title, and not putting them in a position of being a human, or, a person with imperfections. And, and I've known that a lot of people have came forth and said that, that's where they first got molested and raped, is in the church. So that's a whole nother subject. We ain't gonna get into that all the way, but maybe we'll talk about that at another time, because that's an area that needs to be exposed to as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we put our trust in, and to me, our trust should go in God, and once we trust God, then He'll lead us, to those that we can confess to, those that we can confide in, because it's very important that even when someone confides in you, that we create spaces and safe spaces that someone can be able to talk, because it's so important for them to get that out, and just like one of the guest said on here, that the devil uses secrets to keep us bound. So we have to understand that, if you're going through any situation, find you somebody to talk to, and pay attention to the signs. I have to continue to iterate on that, because I cannot say that God didn't show me. I ignored what He showed me. I'm just going to be honest, because I was ignoring it. But God was showing me, all the things that He was showing me. I ignored it because I wanted what I wanted, and even out of ignorance,
Yes, ma'am.
So take that time to love yourself, know yourself, and we're going to have as many segments as possible, on this subject, on other subjects of survival, because, We overcame by what? The blood of the Lamb and
For
the
the
word of
Lamb
our
and the word of our
testimony.
testimony.
Revelations
Yes,
12 and
ma'am.
11. We have
Amen.
overcome. And it's by the
Amen.
grace of God. So as many as time as we can come on here and we can speak about the goodness of the Lord, that's what we're going to do.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you know, with you giving that testimony, with a young lady been stabbed twice and died, you were stabbed
Yes.
22 times and lived. But God,
Yes.
that is the
But
grace
God.
of God.
But God.
That is so. How soon do you think your book will be available? And then
I plan on having my book. Go ahead.
no, and also the name of your book. Did you come up with the name?
I did.
Okay.
I plan on having my book completed by the end of the school year ends in June. So I really before the school year is out. So it'll be sometime. I still have to get people involved and find all the people to help me out. So yes, but I am working on it, and the name of it. I'm gonna show it so you can probably see it. It's called Grace Case, Broken, Blessed, and Poured Out.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, we can't wait for you to get that book done, and I'm glad that you're writing, because it's going to be a blessing to a lot of people, because you didn't go through that, you know, and what you went through was not in vain. It had purpose,
Right.
you know, and if it wasn't for you, it was for somebody else, you know. So
yes, ma'am.
we
Yes,
just
ma'am.
give God the glory and the praise for you tonight, and thank you so much for coming and sharing, you know. And I just pray that someone got something out of this interview on tonight. You know, if one person got it, we know we done what we were supposed to do. You know, I had to really come to that realization, because, you know, a lot of times we say, well, why my video didn't go viral? Why this, not that? Why this, that? You know, but it's not about the people. It's not about the numbers. It's about, you know, the effectiveness. If you're effective, and if it affected one person's life, one person,
yes, ma'am,
you know, it was worth that. So, Deanna Richardson, look for her book. Like she said, it will be after the school year is out. Begin to look for that book, Broken, Blessed, and Poured Out. That's the name of the book, Broken, Blessed, and Poured Out.